Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The Florida Gators had one of the youngest defenses in the country in 2023 and certainly saw some growing pains from that unit in that 2023 year. But what I think excites the Florida Gator fans the most and certainly excites me is the stimulated development that you're going to see from the youth on this Florida Gators defense. We took a look at Jordan Castell late last week. Now we're working to the defensive line and taking a look at my personal favorite, Kelby Collins. Many of the Florida fans that have been rocking with the boys for the last couple of years know I was a massive fan of Kelby Collins going back to his days at the high school level in the state of Alabama, was a massive get in the recruiting class and really played some good football as a true freshman for the Florida Gators. And what I appreciate the most out of Kelby Collins was a guy that didn't necessarily stuff the stat sheet in terms of sacks and tackles for loss, but was far more disruptive than the stat sheet really shows. And when you dive into the film, you kind of start realizing the role that Kelby Collins played in this Florida Gators defense and what he's going to continue to play over the next couple of years. It's rare to see a true freshman play as much along the line of scrimmage as you saw Kelby Collins, and that really does excite me. Heading into 2024, want to get into the film of Kelby Collins, talk a little bit about what he brought to this Florida Gators defense. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. It truly has been a blast going through this Florida Gators defense, taking deep dives into the film. The amount of support you guys have shown the boys truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. Now, Kelby Collins, going back to the high school days, you weren't really sure if he was going to play on the edge, he was going to play on the inside. And Austin Armstrong moved him all along that defensive line. The versatility that he provided to this Florida Gators defense up front was massive, right? We talked with Jordan Castell about all the different roles Jordan Castell could play in the back end of that Florida Gators defense. And Austin Armstrong obviously wants to give a lot of different looks. He wants to do the same thing up front, right? You dive into the film, you see 3-man fronts, you see 4-man fronts, you even see 5-man fronts from this Florida Gators defense. And a guy like Kelby Collins, who can play the 3-tech, can play the edge. You even saw him play as an outside linebacker standing up at times, really allows Austin Armstrong to get creative with his personnel package on the defensive line. Now, the first thing I want to talk about in terms of the film that Kelby Collins really displayed was what he could do in the run game. And you think back to that 2023 year, as good as Princely U was at rushing the passer, truly one of the better pass rushers in the SEC, wasn't very good against the run, got moved around a lot along the line of scrimmage. Kelby Collins really flashed some ability to be a hammer in the run game, and it doesn't necessarily get talked about because it's not showing up in the stat sheet, but the ability to take on double teams, to win at the point of attack was something that I thought Kelby Collins did really well. And definitely you kind of think in heading into 2024, as he continues to get that body right, is going to be an elite run defender for this Florida Gators program. Now, getting into the film, you see some growing pains, but you see some serious power in the hands. Now, this kind of gets to the versatility that you saw Florida play with a 3-man front, where they're going to ask Kelby Collins to work kind of shaded into that right tackle. And when you fire up the film, Kelby Collins playing on the inside, easy power in his hands, really just beating that right tackle to the inside. This offensive lineman trying to pull around, can't really get around. Kelby Collins gets off the block, makes a play. Kelby Collins' ability to be a hammer in the run game on the inside of that defensive line, extremely impressive. But you see him do it in other spots as well, right? Now you're kind of playing that traditional edge rusher position, 2nd and 8. Now, Kelby Collins obviously has some stuff to work on. He was a true freshman last year. You see the flashes in terms of what Kelby Collins can do against the run. You talk about setting an edge. You talk about winning at the point of attack, working on that left side of that defensive line. He wins, right? But what he needs to do is keep that outside shoulder free, not allow that quarterback to get the edge. Unfortunately, not able to do so, popping off a big run. But at the end of the day, you see the power that Kelby Collins has from that edge rusher position, doesn't get moved off the line of scrimmage. And if he can continue to kind of hone in that craft, keeping that outside shoulder free, I think you see a massive step in the right direction from Kelby Collins. as a run defender for the Florida Gators. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is what he can do as a pass rusher. And when you start looking at Kelby Collins as a pass rusher, it starts with the power that he has in his hands. Right, an ideal frame. He's got long arms. He's a bigger edge rusher, and you see him really get into tackles and flash that kind of cinder block hands that he has. You take a look at this Utah game. This is Kelby Collins' first game at the college football level, lining up on the bottom of your screen here, working against this left tackle, and you're going to see just the easy power that Kelby Collins is able to create, getting his hands on this tackle, just being extremely disruptive. And again, not going to come up with the sack, but that's kind of what we get at in terms of not necessarily his production showing up on the stat sheet, but certainly showing up on the film. And you continue to work through the film of Kelby Collins. He just continues to show the power that he has in his hands. Again, working on the edge here. And you're going to see, again, real easy power in his hands, just easily getting the tackle off his base, really collapsing the pocket. That's kind of just blowing up plays. And again, not coming up with the sack, but you talk about a massive play, 4th and 10, game on the line against Tennessee. Kelby Collins was out there as his third game as a college football player, and he was being extremely disruptive for this Florida Gators defense. He also has a high motor, which I think you really like. Now, I think what you want to see Kelby Collins take the step in is when you have the power that Kelby Collins has in his hands, when tackles have to respect what you can do just with your straight speed, the power, getting your hands on tackles, you want to start seeing him develop a little bit more fluidity in terms of rushing the passer, using his hands. You saw flashes of it, but if there is a next step to be taken for Kelby Collins, it's starting to kind of incorporate a deeper bag of pass rush moves, adding a little bit of nuance to his game. And you certainly saw flashes of it, right? You see a little bit of that twitch and bend. Kelby Collins obviously challenging tackles with the power that he has in his hands, but you're going to start to see him use his hands better, get to the edge of tackles, and really challenge tackles athletically and with some speed as well. Firing up the film here again, working on this left tackle. And you see him, all right, I'm going to disengage. I'm going to use my hands. I'm going to cut the corner here and get after KJ Jefferson. You started to see that come on towards the end of the season. I'm really excited to see if Kelby Collins can kind of expand on that heading into 2024. Another rep that I really like. Again, when you have all the power that you have, you're working on this right tackle from Vanderbilt here. Tackles have to respect what you're going to do just getting right into their pads. So if you can start adding some hand usage to your pass rush game, that's the next step we're looking for. And you, again, saw some flashes of Kelby Collins doing that, right? Nice little swim move, getting disengaged, blowing up a pocket. Again, not going to come up with the sack, but he's getting this Florida Gators defense off the field on third down. Kelby Collins, much more disruptive than the stat sheet showed, and I think has a lot of room to grow heading into 2024. And you kind of take a look at this Florida Gators defensive line, Kelby Collins taking a step, guys like TJ Searcy taking a step. You inject guys like LJ McCray, who I think is a very similar kind of player to Kelby Collins, where you have all this power in your hands. Now, can you refine it? Can you start using your hands a little bit more effectively? I think you see LJ McCray and Kelby Collins wreck a lot of games for opposing offenses for this Florida Gators defense. And I mean, I look at this defensive line and say, you're returning almost everybody up front. It's a much more talented group, but I think it's also a lot deeper heading into 2024. And when you have the ability to play as many fresh bodies as Florida will be able to play in 2024, it's only going to help the film in the play for guys like Kelby Collins. Really excited about what the Florida Gators have cooking up front. And I think Kelby Collins certainly going to play a massive role in it. Now, we'll continue to work through some of these players and want to get into some more transfers for this Florida Gators program as well. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.